Today's story isn't just intense, it's emotional, powerful, and unforgettable. And it begins with a girl everyone underestimated, a girl who heard laughter before respect, mockery before recognition, and doubt before acknowledgement. Her name was Aurora Vale. And the first day, she walked into Naval Special Warfare training. Nobody took her seriously. She wasn't tall. She wasn't bulky. She didn't walk like someone who had grown up fighting or lifting iron. She walked like someone calm, quiet, reserved, someone people assumed would quit before noon. And as she stepped into formation wearing her training shorts and boots, adjusting the simple ponytail that brushed her shoulder blades, she could already hear the whispers circling her like vultures waiting for a weakness. "Look at her, she's tiny." One trainee muttered, another laughed. "She's gonna cry before Hell Week even starts." And then the loudest one, a muscular Marine candidate with arms like carved stone and a voice full of arrogance, shouted just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Try not to cry, princess. We wouldn't want your mascara running." And the entire group erupted in laughter, some subtle, some loud, some cruel. And Aurora didn't flinch, didn't glare, didn't react. She simply stared ahead, spine straight, posture controlled, expression unreadable. And someone behind her whispered, confused, "Why isn't she reacting?" Because what nobody knew, what nobody expected, what nobody could even imagine was that Aurora Vale wasn't here to prove them wrong. She was here because she had already survived worse than anything this program could throw at her. The instructor, a seasoned Navy SEAL chief with scars on his face and experience carved into his posture, blew the whistle and shouted, "Line up. Today isn't training. Today is elimination." His voice echoed across the courtyard, bouncing off concrete and ocean wind, and Aurora stepped forward just like everyone else, silent, ready. The first drill was simple, on paper, but hell in reality. Push-ups to failure, no time limit, no quitting allowed unless you physically tapped out. And the Marine who mocked her earlier smirked at Aurora and whispered, "Try not to break a nail, sweetheart." And Aurora finally spoke. Not loudly, not aggressively, just clearly, "Save your breath. You're going to need it." The Marine scoffed, and then the whistle blew. Bodies dropped to the ground, arms bent, back straight, grit in every movement. And for the first 5 minutes, everyone matched pace, some laughing, some flexing ego more than muscle. But soon the first waves of exhaustion hit. Shoulders trembled, breaths turned sharp and uneven, faces flushed red. But Aurora, she didn't slow, didn't shake, didn't even change expression. She moved with perfect, steady rhythm, as if her muscles were machines instead of flesh. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. People began failing, tapping out, collapsing, and yet the Marine kept forcing himself forward, desperate to outlast her. But Aurora didn't glance at him, didn't acknowledge him. She just kept going, and finally, at 40 minutes, with only two people left, the Marine and Aurora, the Marine's arms buckled, his chest hit the dirt, and he let out a furious, exhausted growl before gasping, "What the hell are you?" And Aurora finally answered, "Discipline. Whistle. Drill complete." Aurora stood with no struggle, no limp, no heavy breathing, just steady composure. The chief instructor watched her, eyes narrowing, not judging, calculating. Next drill, sand log carry with ocean immersion. Trainees ran into the freezing surf, grabbed heavy wood logs soaked with salt water, and lifted them overhead while waves slammed their bodies. But Aurora didn't just lift the log. She stabilized it with perfect balance, while Marines twice her size struggled to keep theirs controlled. The ocean churned, waves crashed, cold numbed muscle and bone, and Aurora kept going until the chief finally ordered everyone back onto the sand. Half the class couldn't feel their hands, some couldn't walk without limping, but Aurora, still standing, still silent, still calm. And that was only day one. Day two, combat grappling tests. The Marine who mocked her earlier grinned when he was paired with Aurora. "Finally," he muttered, "time to break the princess." The chief gave one rule only: submission wins. The match began, and the Marine charged, thinking speed and mass would overwhelm her. And that's when everything changed. Aurora didn't retreat. She moved forward, stepping inside the strike zone with surgical precision, catching his momentum, redirecting it, flipping him onto his back so fast he didn't even realize he was airborne until his spine hit the mat. Gasps erupted around the room, but Aurora wasn't done. Before he recovered, she secured his arm, locked his shoulder, and applied torque with perfect execution. Not enough to break, but enough to let him feel how easily she could. He tapped instantly. Match over. In under 6 seconds, the room fell into stunned silence. Then the chief spoke, not shouting now, but something far more meaningful: respect. Candidate Vale, stay on the mat. Next opponent, taller, faster, same result. Third opponent tried brute force. Aurora dismantled him like she was dismantling a puzzle. Fourth, lasted 8 seconds only because she let him. Fifth, tried dirty tactics. She countered every move without hesitation. Then the chief gave the final order that changed everything. Marine Rodriguez, step forward. Rodriguez, the one who mocked her first, who laughed loudest, stepped forward looking furious and humiliated. He cracked his knuckles, rolled his shoulders, and whispered, "I'm going to make you regret staying." Aurora finally looked him in the eyes, her voice steady, cold. "You already regret underestimating me." The whistle blew, and Rodriguez attacked with everything he had: jabs, grapples, shoulder checks, takedown attempts. But Aurora wasn't just good. She was exceptional. She countered with speed Marines weren't trained to expect, precision no ordinary fighter possessed, and discipline no ego could match. The fight lasted longer, 22 seconds, and then she disarmed him, immobilized him, and executed a chokehold so controlled it put him unconscious without causing injury. When he woke up, he didn't laugh, he didn't smirk. He sat up, stared at Aurora, and whispered one word, the first honest one he'd spoken since training began: respect. By week 3, nobody called her princess. Nobody mocked her. Nobody doubted her. The same men who laughed now watched her with awe because they realized she wasn't there to be equal. She was there to exceed. She carried boats during Hell Week when others collapsed. She navigated night missions with perfect clarity. She shot targets with precision, so sharp instructors checked her rifle for modification. And when the final evaluation came, a 6-on-1 close combat simulation, something reserved only for the strongest candidates, she stepped into the ring without fear. 6 Marines surrounded her, trained, disciplined, determined, and the room held its breath. The bell rang, and Aurora moved like motion and strategy were one. One Marine lunged. She dropped him with a joint lock. Second swung. She countered and used him as leverage against the third. Fourth attempted a choke. She reversed it and incapacitated him in 2 movements. Fifth managed to land a hit, and for the first time her expression changed. Not pain, not anger, something sharper: calculation. She ended him with a takedown so flawless the observers stood. Only one remained: Rodriguez, the first voice of mockery, now the last standing opponent. He took a breath, nodded respectfully, then engaged. Their fight wasn't fast. It was tactical, controlled, like 2 minds playing chess at full speed. But Aurora saw the opening first. A shift of weight, a brief lapse. And with one decisive maneuver, she brought him to the ground and secured the final submission. The bell rang. Silence. Then the chief, the man who had seen thousands attempt what she'd just accomplished, stepped forward, removed his hat, and saluted her, not as a trainee, not as a novelty, but as a warrior, and in a voice every candidate would remember forever. He said, "Congratulations, Navy SEAL. Welcome to the Brotherhood and the legacy." Aurora didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't collapse. She simply nodded because she didn't become strong to prove anything. She became strong because she already knew who she was. And if you're listening to this on Her Brave Stories, smash that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because legends like Aurora deserve to be remembered. Not because they were loud, but because the world once doubted them, and they rose anyway. And after earning her trident, Aurora Vale vanished from public records the way all true operators do, slipping into classified shadows where missions exist only in whispers, where wars end before the world ever realizes they began. And while others celebrated graduation, she simply moved forward, blending into the rhythm of discipline, precision, and purpose. Because for her, becoming a SEAL wasn't the final victory. It was merely the entry point into a world where only the strongest remained. And the months that followed tested her in ways even Hell Week never could. Harsh deployments, covert extractions, intel recovery, hostage rescues, silent eliminations, and every mission sharpened her further until failure wasn't a possibility. It wasn't even a thought, and somewhere along the timeline of endless operations, the military began calling her something unofficial yet earned. The Ghost Surgeon. Not because she disappeared, but because she eliminated threats with the precision of a medical expert and the speed of a shadow. And ironically, the same Marines who once laughed at her now trained recruits using her footage. Because nothing inspired discipline faster than watching someone who defied expectation, overpowered statistics, and rewrote the rules. Years passed before another defining moment arrived. One that would echo through every SEAL base, every covert unit, every training ground, because one night, deep inside a secure military installation near classified, coastline alarms triggered, radios lit up, and officers rushed into briefing rooms because a SEAL team, one of the best, had gone missing behind enemy lines during a Black Ops reconnaissance mission, and the clock was running out. Satellites barely caught the last signal. Ambush, heavy fire, no extraction route, and the room full of high-ranking command froze, debating strategies, debating risks, debating whether recovery was even possible, until the door opened and Aurora stepped inside. Wearing simple deployment gear, quiet as always, calm as always, and the room fell silent without command needing to say it. She was already assigned. She didn't request backup. She didn't ask questions. She didn't check a map twice. She simply said, "Give me their last coordinates." Hours later, under a silent moon, Aurora deployed into enemy territory alone, her movements merging with darkness and terrain like she'd trained her entire life for that one night. Crawling through sand, scaling cliffs, bypassing patrols, and dismantling surveillance traps one by one with the same precision she once used in training to dismantle opponents. And after 2 hours of infiltration, she found them. 6 elite SEALs pinned down behind a destroyed vehicle, ammunition nearly gone, 3 injured, 1 unconscious, and despite exhaustion and hopelessness hanging over them like a thick fog. The moment they saw her, their expressions changed from fear to disbelief, because they knew that if she made it to them, the mission was no longer a rescue attempt. It was a guaranteed extraction. Status? She whispered. Point one of the SEALs, face bloodied and shoulder wounded, answered with a shaky laugh. "We thought we were done." Aurora shook her head once. "No SEAL dies today." What happened next became the kind of story soldiers told in gyms, shooting ranges, and deployment tents. Never officially recorded, but passed down with awe, because Aurora mapped the entire battlefield in seconds, identifying enemy sniper nests, drone routes, and choke points without hesitation, directing the injured where to crawl, the armed where to aim, timing each move with perfection so exact it felt supernatural. And in 11 minutes, not 12, not 9, 11, she turned the battlefield from a grave into a victory. She took down snipers before anyone heard the shots. She neutralized a drone before it broadcast a signal. She disabled armored vehicles using nothing but knowledge and adaptability. She didn't fight with emotion. She fought with mastery. And when the team finally reached the extraction point, breathing hard, shaking from adrenaline and shock, she stood behind them, the last aboard, because she protected from the back, not the front, always ensuring others survived before she stepped into safety as the helicopter lifted into the sky. The SEALs inside stared at her, not with surprise anymore, but with reverence, and the youngest one whispered the same sentence millions would repeat one day across screens, across countries, across generations. "Try not to cry, princess." Right? His voice cracked, not mocking, emotional. Aurora finally allowed the faintest hint of a smile, the kind earned only after war. "No," she replied quietly, "not this time." Back at base, when the rotors slowed and dust settled, something unprecedented happened. Something no recruit, no officer, no commander would ever forget, because the 6 Marines, battered, exhausted, but alive because of her, stepped forward, lined up shoulder to shoulder, and snapped into formation. Then, as the base watched, they saluted her, not because she was a woman, not because she defied expectation, but because she earned it in every way a warrior could. And somewhere in that silent moment, somewhere beyond rank, beyond uniform, beyond the world's doubts, a legacy was born. One that began in laughter and ended in history. If you're listening right now on our Brave Stories, take a second, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Fire, where are you watching from? Because stories like Aurora Vale don't happen every day, but when they do, they remind the world. Never judge the quiet one. Never underestimate the small one. Never mock the disciplined one. Because one day, she might be the one who saves you.